morning, beloveds. Gabby's in here being Gabby. Well, welcome to spring. Depending on where you live in the country, I don't know what that means. For us, our trees are blooming. Our grass is actually turning green again, which is shocking, considering, our grass had to deal with snow and our grass didn't know what to do with snow. And the azaleas are blooming, which again is shocking. I know that azaleas have a reputation for being difficult and yesterday was the first day of spring, which I didn't think about because yesterday was my husband's birthday and I forget. It's like, oh yeah, you were born on the spring equinox. And yet this morning it's still in the 40s. So, but it's supposed to be a beautiful day. It's going to it may get up to 70, it may not. So, I know where I live, our weather is mercurial. That is the word I'm going to use. They always say if you don't like the weather, wait 15 minutes and it'll change. But, all right, we are in the month of March. It is March 21st. Our title is Authority. And let's see what Ernest has to say. If we were to ask a modern scientist what authority he has for believing in a certain principle in nature, his only answer would be, because I can do something with it, it must exist. Since it reacts to the use I make of it, there must be something real about it. This is equally true of our faith in God. Because something does react to our faith, there must be something real that can react. Even after Jesus had demonstrated the authority of his faith in God through so many wonderful acts, one of his disciples asked him to show them the Father. He told them to believe him for the very work's sake. If Jesus was the first or only person to multiply loaves and fishes and make the wind and wave obey his will, it was not because God or the supreme creative cause had withheld the same power from others. It was merely because Jesus was the first and perhaps the only who completely accepted his oneness with the Spirit and then acted on that basis. When we make our affirmation in the silence of our own consciousness, we are facing the divine reality, dealing with it directly, using its power consciously. Today, I affirm my faith in God's presence dwelling within me, and I ask no one for any justification of my conviction. Boldly, I proclaim this presence, and humbly I accept its authority in my life. The divine, governing everything out of itself, knows how to guide my life towards happiness, towards peace, towards perfect fulfillment. There is no barrier or bar to the possibilities of its expression. No restriction to its dynamic creativeness, because it is self-existent in all things. This is the secret I hold in the invisible. Alone with God, I make my claim, and in the integrity of my own soul, I fear no opposition to it. Believe me that I am the Father, and the Father is in me, or else believe me for the very work's sake. And that is John 14:11. So the Bible quote he used is the one that Jesus used that Ernest referenced at the beginning. And that's the tricky thing with faith. That is the tricky thing with faith. Because in faith believing, we don't necessarily get concrete proof when we are asked to believe. There's a very common meme going around about unicorns. frequently what we say is, I'll believe it when I see it. But the trouble with unicorns or magic is you'll see it when you believe it. And that can be the same with spiritual faith. I won't say religious faith. I won't. It can be the same with spiritual faith. Is that we have to believe it to see it. We have to accept it as real before it can be real. We have to accept it as real before it can take, I'll use the word dynamic activity in our life, because it's always working in our life. It's always acting in our life. There's no time that Spirit is not working in our life. The question becomes when we step up consciously to it and then and take a hand in that faith. And one of the things about Science of Mind that I like is that when we look for proof of God, we look around. The miracle of nature is proof of God. The fact that gravity works is proof of God. The fact that, seeds sprout, acorns sprout oak trees is proof of God. We're willing to accept these amazing things that happen around us all the time. I guess I would say the quiet miracles. It's like we don't need the big flashy miracles to believe that there is a patterning intelligence, that there is, a grounding spirit, the ground of all being. We're willing to accept the quiet miracles. It's not that we don't appreciate the big ones, but we don't need them. So, and that's the reason why Ernest is constantly on the drumbeat of consciousness. If we're consciously aware of the activity of this Spirit in our lives, then we participate more fully in the activity of the Spirit. And we are co-creators with this Spirit rather than being passive receptors of this Spirit. We can go out and make things happen for ourselves. We're not sitting back waiting passively for it to happen. We are actively participating in the creativity. So, authority. If we were to ask a modern scientist what authority he has for believing in a certain principle in nature, his only answer would be, because I can do something with it, it must exist. The scientific method. We can prove gravity by dropping things. We can prove the law of thermodynamics, all three of the laws of thermodynamics by doing experiments or creating machines. I mean, a whole lot of machines that we use are created based on the law of thermodynamics. There's one in particular, and I always get them confused whether it's the second or the third law, but a whole lot of your car is based on, thermodynamics. Since it reacts to the use I make of it, there must be something real about it. This is equally true of our faith in God. So since I can make use of God, there must be something to it. Kind of not something you expect to hear in a religion, but you would in spirituality. Because something does react to our faith. There must be something real that can react. But then let's remember, we've been taught about the great accountant in the sky. That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about the great accountant in the sky. We're talking about that creative energy that flows through everything. that pattern of intelligence that causes acorns to sprout into oak trees. Even after Jesus had demonstrated the authority of his faith in God through so many wonderful acts, one of his disciples asked him to show them the Father. He told them to believe him for the very work's sake. It's like, I can't show you everything, because clearly if you're looking around and you're not seeing God the Father in everything around you, I can't narrow it down for you. I can't narrow it down for you. That's what Jesus is saying. I can't narrow God down. I can't limit God that way. I can't limit God in such a way that you will believe that it's God. But you've seen what I can do with God. So, Jesus didn't try and limit God. Jesus said, look, it's all around you, but if you're not going to believe that, can you not believe the things that I do that you don't do? Not that you can't, but that you don't. If Jesus was the first or only person to multiply loaves and fishes and make the wind and waves obey his will, it was not because God or the supreme creative cause, and he capitalized all three of those words, supreme creative cause, had withheld the same power from others. Okay? It was merely because Jesus was the first and perhaps the only who completely accepted his oneness with Spirit and then acted on that basis. I was raised Catholic. And so if you go back and you look at the Catholic saints, they do some pretty wild stuff. Some of their miracles are pretty amazing. And I'm quite sure that there are people all over the world that in places that, in religions that we don't read, that have done just as amazing things, but we're not aware of them in our Western Christianity because that's where Jesus comes from. He's not the only one. He's just the most famous. And you can go back, like I said, and look up any of the Catholic saints. And some of them did some pretty wild stuff. But Jesus is the most famous. He's not the only one. And that's one of the things, that's the reason why we call him the example, not the exception. It's not that we can't. It's just that we haven't. Am I prepared to go out and multiply loaves and fishes? No. I mean, I've got good faith, but that's a mind-blowing level of faith. It was merely because Jesus was the first, perhaps the only, who completely accepted his oneness with Spirit and then acted on that basis. I mean, he's literally the definition of in faith believing. When we make our affirmations in the silence of our own consciousness, we are facing the divine reality. He uses the capital D and capital R. Facing with it, capital I, directly. Using it, capital I, its power consciously. And that's what Jesus came here to teach us to do. He didn't come here to prove that there was a God. He came here to teach us how to use the power of God or the power of Spirit. Can we use it all at once? No. And part of that is our faith. Part of it is our faith. And part of it is that, yeah, we are filtering it through a mortal material filter. So, can we use all of it? No. Can we use some of it? Absolutely. Do we use some of it? All the time. Oh yeah. Yeah, we absolutely use it. The question becomes, how consciously are we using it? And the more consciously we use it, the more successfully we will use it, the more we will get what we're asking for. When we use it. And I'm not talking about stuff. I just occasionally want to remind you that I'm not talking about stuff. Stuff is, we can absolutely use it for stuff, and there's nothing wrong with using it for stuff, but I'm not talking just about stuff. I am talking about those qualities of God, the happy, the peace, the creativity, the joy, the unity, all of that. Today, I affirm my faith in God's presence dwelling within me. I ask no one for any justification of my conviction. I'm not asking for proof. I'm not asking for concrete proof. Boldly, I proclaim this presence, and humbly, I accept its authority in my life. I know for some of us that authority rings a little hard on the ears, but that's one of the things we want to remember when he uses that term authority. He's also talking about he's also reminding us that this authority is the authority in our life that wants us to be happy and content and peaceful and kind and compassionate and loving and creative and unified and harmonious and all of that. So we can get this idea and only take the negative connotations of authority. It has positive ones too. Let's see. Okay, where was I? Boldly I proclaim this presence, and humbly I accept its authority in my life. The divine, governing everything out of itself, knows how to guide my life towards happiness, towards peace, towards perfect fulfillment. So the divine governing out of itself, meaning it's governing out of everything. So that bliss body that occasionally I talk about, that perfect plan of me, it's governing out of that. And I have access to that bliss body by moving into spiritual practice, meditating, prayer, treatment. I can go take a look at the box of the bliss body. So that divine authority is guiding me towards happiness, peace, fulfillment, whatever that looks like. And it doesn't have to be world-shattering. It can be world-shattering for my world, but it doesn't have to be world-shattering for everybody else's world. I can have my mind blown and not blow everybody else's mind. There is no barrier or bar to the possibilities of its expression, no restrictions to its dynamic creativeness, because it is self-existent in all things. There are no limitations on God. There are no limitations on spirit. Which means there are really no limitations on us. I say we have limits because we believe we have limits. But we have no limits. Are we bold enough to live that way? This is the secret I hold with the invisible. Alone with God I make my claim, and in the integrity of my own soul I feel no opposition to it. And that's the trick, or the key. When you make your claim, to feel no opposition. And if you feel opposition, then treat your opposition. You don't have to restate your claim. You do not have to restate your claim. It's like, and that, I think that's one of the things that when we talk about doing treatments. You do your treatment and then you let your treatment go. But if you don't get the results that you're looking for, you don't go back and redo the treatment. You go back and treat the opposition to the treatment. You go back and treat the barriers within yourself. You go back and treat where your faith isn't quite all the way there. So you're not redoing the treatment. You're just adding on to the treatment by treating where you are meeting resistance, either within yourself or around you. So, yeah. All right. Believe me that I am in the Father and the Father is in me, or else believe me for the very work's sake. I've done these amazing miracles for you and still you're questioning. Jesus is like, I can't limit God down to show God to you. You have to open up and believe. All right. And if you can hear her, Rita is, I know you can see her ears. That's Rita sitting in my lap purring. Our mission today, should we choose to accept it? Oof. I think our mission today should be this: boldly proclaim the presence and humbly accept the authority in our life. It's like, I know that Spirit is real, and I know that Spirit is working in my life. That didn't sound very bold, but it's like, recognize it. Open your eyes, look around, and see the very miracles, which I actually have one sitting in my lap. We still don't know how they purr. We still don't know how these magnificent animals purr. But one of the really cool things about the purr is that they purr on a frequency that is actually literally bone healing. Bone healing. The frequency that they purr at heals bone. We don't know how they do it. We don't know why they do it. And yet they do. That's a miracle. So open your eyes and see the little miracles around you, and then boldly proclaim that in your life. And accept that it's there to help you live your best life. The power of God flows through you all the time. And you can use it to live your best life. And you can use it to help the world live its best life. Because remember, what you want for yourself, you want for everyone else around you. And that is the miracle. Because we're all using the same power. All right, beloveds. I'm going to encourage you to do something kind for yourself. Do something compassionate for yourself. Do something loving for yourself. Whatever that looks like to you. I am currently doing that right now by, I'm snuggling, I know she's just below the level of the camera, snuggling a purring cat. Although I think she did it for me because she came in and sat in my lap. I mean, this is a sound I could listen to all day. But I have stuff to do, including we have an 11 a.m. service coming up for you soon. And Jessie has been teaching us about Venice blood work. So that'll be really cool. So whatever loving, kind, and compassionate thing you can do for yourself, be it a tiny little act of simply washing your face up to an enormous act of, completely changing the direction of your life. Whatever. There are no limits on your act of kindness, compassion, and loving for yourself. Because the more kind and compassionate and loving you are for yourself, the more you will have for the rest of the world. You deserve it. You deserve it. I don't ask you to do kind, compassionate, loving things for yourself to do it for other people. I ask you to do it because you're a beloved child of God in whom Spirit is well pleased always and forever. And you deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve that loving, kind, and compassionate. And the one place to start is always with yourself. Because you are a child of God. All right. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful day. So do something to enjoy that day, whatever it looks like. Go get a little bit of sunlight on your face. Drink some water. Engage your mind and your body. Get some fresh air. I had the windows open for several hours yesterday. It's the best thing about springtime. The worst thing about springtime is pollen! But it's very necessary so that we can have all those beautiful flowers that we will have, that we're starting to have now. So enjoy spring. Spring is a time of planting. Plant something good for yourself. All right? And open the windows of your soul. Allow that breath of heaven to remind you you do live in heaven now. Always and forever. It simply takes consciously recognizing it. Okay. All right, beloveds. We will be back with the 11 a.m. service right here on Facebook Live with you. And then Reverend David will be on around 5 p.m. for the Facebook Live. And if you miss us live, you can always catch us on YouTube. I archived the services on the Creative Life Spiritual Center YouTube channel, and I archived these on the Running Rev Ryan YouTube channel. So feel free to go and subscribe to our channels, and I'm going to pull her up into screen so that y'all can see her. That's my beloved Rita. Honestly, she's a better minister than I am. All right, beloveds, do what you need to do to make it a wonderful day, and know you are loved.